r/AskReddit, taxi drivers of Reddit, has anyone actually jumped into your taxi and screamed, "Follow that car"? If yes, what happened? I'm actually a taxi driver, bike taxi/pedicab. I was hanging out at a corner when a coworker of mine got a ride across the intersection. Suddenly a guy walks up to me and tells me to follow that cab, but keep a distance. This guy looked current or ex-military, demeanor, haircut, attitude, has one of those earbuds like the agents from the Matrix. Exuded the vibe of being very professional/competent and not giving a fuck at the same time. So I was born for this moment. I read all the Tom Clancy books as a kid, all the books about spycraft during World War II and the Cold War, every spy movie ever made, etc. I kept about 100 yards distance and then would accelerate when they went around a curve anytime they were near a light or intersection. I have all the lights memorized to ensure we would make the same light, but a little later than they did. At one point a car pulls up alongside and another guy switches places with the original guy and we keep going. After about 12 blocks the pedicab pulls over ahead of us and the guy tells me to pull over. Hands me $20 for a $12 ride, although I would have done it for free, just to live my 9-year-old fantasy. Probably just local cops, but I can dream. Not entirely related, but I once had somebody jump into my car and I wasn't even a taxi. I was driving down the street in Boston and was stopped at a red light, minding my own business. Suddenly, my passenger door flung open and someone climbed in. Completely shocked, I didn't even have time to react. For some reason it never entered my mind that I should be alarmed or concerned about this trespasser, so when I saw that it was an elderly lady I just remained calm. Without skipping a beat, she said in a thick Russian accent, "You take me home, please." So, I started driving. I asked where she lived, but she just said keep going. I tell you when to stop. At that point it dawned on me that she probably had dementia and that she likely thought I was someone she knew, or maybe even a taxi. Nope. After a few minutes of conversation it was abundantly clear that this woman had simply picked the first car she saw, gotten in, and requested a ride. During the 10-minute car ride she asked about my life. I was in college studying psychology at the time, and when I told her this, she said, "You make good psychologist, very nice boy." It put a big smile on my face. My grandparents had all died either before I was born or during early childhood, so I don't think I had ever had an elderly person say something like that to me. It felt nice. Finally we reached an apartment building and she told me to pull over. When I put the car in park she turned to me and said, "Thank you driving me today." I assured her it was no problem at all and wished her the best, and her parting words to me as she climbed out were, "Very good boy, good luck with studies." After pausing for a moment, I drove away and just kind of let it be. It was such a nonchalant and comfortable interaction that I resisted my temptation to immediately text friends to tell them what had happened. It felt like that would have cheapened it or turned it into a novelty. It was just so natural, and I went with it. She's unlikely to be alive at this point, but I hope she enjoyed the rest of her days. Godspeed, Russian grandma I had for a day. Yes, but it's usually followed by "I've always wanted to say that. I've always wanted to pull the opposite, there's no time to explain, get in. Still hadn't built up the courage." Friend of mine is a taxi driver and this has happened to him. An elderly man rushed inside his taxi and pointed out loud to follow a red Toyota. This man never explains why to follow, just tries to frantically call to somewhere. My friend asked multiple times if they need to call police, but the man just waved no and pointed to follow the car. They circle around the town, finally ending up to a front of a house where the car followed parks. As the car stops, man says, "Hold on a moment, I'll pay," and jumps out of the car. An elderly lady steps out of the red Toyota and the man, apparently her husband, starts to scream, "Why did you left me at the mall?" Woman is waving her hand screaming back, "What are you screaming about? You are here?" and walks inside the house like nothing has happened. Man returns and pays the drive, being sorry about it all at the same time. My friend thought they were following a burglar or something, but it turned out the lady just forgot her husband at the mall. Funny situation in a way, but sad in a way too, as my friend said. Dementia. I did that once as a passenger. We said it as a joke. We were in a group of 6 and couldn't fit in a single cab. So I went into the second cab and said, "Follow that cab." We expected the driver to laugh it off and ask for our destination. Instead, he just took off and followed the first cab. He'd been waiting for that moment. He was ready. Buckle up, boys. I was born for this. This is it. My time has come. My destiny will finally be fulfilled. I knew waiting for the prophecy instead of following my dreams would pay off. I'm not a taxi driver, but I was a passenger for a story that is similarly cliched. Back when I was an actor/active drug addict/alcoholic. What's the difference? I know. I had a director threaten to recast me a week before the show if I was late to rehearsal again. To put that into perspective, recasting a major role after rehearsals have started is generally unheard of and almost unthinkable so late in the rehearsal process. She was really fed up with me. On this particular day, I was running late as usual and had 5 minutes to get to rehearsal. It was a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute drive. I flagged a cab, hopped in and said, "I need you to take me to this address, and, if you can, I need you to step on it." The driver smiled wide and said, "I've always wanted to hear that." Cue him putting the pedal to the metal. Within 10 seconds we were approaching 65 miles per hour on a 30 miles per hour city street, weaving through traffic, clipping yellow lights to close for comfort, and generally whipping this cab around in an extraordinarily haphazard and irresponsible fashion. I was stunned, wide-eyed, in absolute shock and terror, unable to process that he quite literally heeded my request, or that this was actually happening. I thought I was going to die. It was the best cab ride of my life. I was 2 minutes early to rehearsal. I followed the car. It stopped in a suburban house. Dude went into the house. They were his family and didn't have room for him with them. Whatever. What a roller coaster. Reality is often disappointing. I asked a taxi driver that question many years back. He said that happened on 2 separate occasions, and both times, a wife was trying to catch her cheating husband committing adultery. Update: I have been getting a lot of comments on whether the husband cheated on the wife twice. I'm not sure about that, but the story that I was told was 2 different couples. Also, one of the wives actually caught her husband meeting his mistress. Oh god, I have a really bad story for this. I used to drive a taxi for my uncle's company. A guy gets in my taxi, says just follow that car, and reassures me it's nothing serious. Except when the other car stops, he gets out and runs to the car we were following and drags the guy out and starts hitting him in the face hard. I got out and was yelling at him and calling him an asshole for lying to me, and he got all in my face and threatened to beat the shit out of me too. Said a bunch of racist slurs at me, then ran off. The guy who got punched had his nose broken. The weirdest part is that he had no idea who that guy was. I left my float on a bus. I was not about to get my ass whooped for forgetting my $1,000 silver hollow stick on my way to orchestra practice. I had a fare jump in my car, who immediately started berating about my car and how Uber does not allow drivers to use 2-door cars. This came as a surprise to me because I was not, and never have been, an Uber driver. I was just parked in front of the hotel waiting for a friend. This has happened to me twice. The second time the girl was so glued to her phone that she didn't even make eye contact. I let it roll for a couple seconds before I finally asked her why she was in my car. She looked up, wordlessly opened the door, and disappeared into the night. Really makes you think about how the world has changed when it's normal to pop into a stranger's backseat, but weird to talk to them once you're in. My father was a taxi driver for quite a while. It never happened to him, for which he was eternally disappointed. He did, however, once get run over by his own car. Edit, adding story of getting run over due to popular Irish demand. Okay, so this was in the mid-90s, in southern England. Like many taxis of that vintage, he was driving a diesel Citroën BX. Also, like those cars, it had been driven into the ground. In any case, he was dropping off a little old lady at a house at the top of a hill. Being a gentlemanly sort, he helped her out of the back seat and escorted her around the front of the car. The handbrake cable snapped while they doing it and the car began to roll down the hill. He pushed the lady out of the way and got hit. Car dragged him about 100 yards down the road before a guy out on a run was able to jump in and put his foot on the brake. He was mostly okay, had a pretty severe friction burn / road rash down one of his legs and up his back. He had to have x-rays on his ribs too, but they turned out not to be broken or cracked. The little old lady threatened to sue because in his haste to get her out of the way, he pushed her over and she broke a wrist. Old bones, presumably. Fortunately the company's solicitor was able to head that off. Could make the case that he saved her life, I suppose. When I found out later I'd have been 14 or 15, I laughed my ass off. I mean, who gets run over by their own car? Didn't take long to realize how lucky he'd been, though. Friend driving a cab had this happen once. It was college students out on the town and their friends got into a cab just prior to them. Yes, he chased it to wherever they went. Tipped him nice, he said. Very anticlimactic. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. If there are any threads you would like covered, leave it in the comments. Bye.